A horse that sold for $4 million as a yearling went on to earn less than $2 million in his entire racing career. Then, within weeks of retiring, that same horse was sold for $70 million, not because of anything he did on the track, but because of what he might do in a breeding shed. That gap between what a racehorse earns and what a racehorse is worth is the real business, and almost nobody outside the industry understands it. The horse was Fuseishi Pegasus. In 1998, a Japanese businessman named Fuseo Sekiguchi paid $4 million for him as a yearling before the horse had ever raced. 2 years later, Fuseishi Pegasus won the Kentucky Derby as the favorite, the first favorite to win in over 2 decades. It looked like the ultimate payoff. But over his full racing career, he earned just under $2 million in prize money, a fraction of what he cost to buy, train, and campaign. And yet weeks after his final race, Coolmore Stud, one of the most powerful breeding operations in the world, paid $70 million for his breeding rights. That single number tells you almost everything you need to know about this industry. Racing is not where the real money is made. Racing is the audition. The paycheck comes later, in a completely different business, one that has nothing to do with who crosses the finish line first. But to understand how a horse becomes worth that much, you have to start where every owner starts, at the auction ring, with a bet that has almost no data behind it. At yearling sales like Keeneland in Kentucky, buyers are purchasing an animal that has never run a single official race. All they have is bloodline, conformation, and instinct. A well-bred yearling can sell for anywhere from $100,000 into the millions, based almost entirely on who its parents were. Would you spend $250,000 on an athlete you've never seen compete? In this business, that's simply Tuesday. Once the hammer falls, the spending doesn't slow down. It accelerates. Training a horse at a competitive level typically runs $50,000 to $100,000 a year, covering the trainer, the jockey, and daily conditioning. Veterinary care adds more on top of that, and insurance becomes mandatory once a horse's value climbs into serious territory. Add transportation between tracks and entry fees for major races, and an owner can be $250,000 into a horse before it has proven anything at all. Here's what almost nobody tells new owners going in. None of that spending is really about winning races. It's about auditioning for something far more valuable. Prize money looks impressive on paper. The Kentucky Derby winner takes home over $3 million. Some of the richest races in the world, like the Dubai World Cup, have offered purses in the range of $12 million in recent years. But only a small number of horses ever compete at that level, and fewer still win enough to cover what was spent building them. If prize money were the whole business, almost nobody would stay in it. The real business is breeding, and this is the part that changes everything. A stallion that performs well doesn't retire quietly. He retires into what amounts to a second career, one measured in stud fees rather than trophies. A single successful stallion can breed with well over 100 mares in one season, and each breeding generates a fee that, for the most sought-after horses, can run into 6 figures. Multiply that across a full season, year after year, and you start to see why buyers were willing to pay Fuseishi Pegasus's owner $70 million for an animal that barely earned $2 million on the track. This is why owners sometimes retire a horse early, even while it's still winning. Every race is a chance to get hurt, and an injury doesn't just end a season. It can end the breeding value that was the entire point of owning the horse in the first place. A racehorse's legs are its balance sheet. One bad step changes everything. That fragility shapes who actually plays this game at the highest level. Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum of Dubai has spent decades building the Godolphin racing operation. Coolmore Stud, the same operation that bought Fuseishi Pegasus, has spent just as long building a breeding empire in Ireland. These aren't people chasing safe, predictable returns. They're chasing the rare animal that turns into a genetic gold mine. And they've built entire organizations designed to find it before anyone else does. Most of them don't find it. Across the industry, a large majority of racehorses never earn back what their owners spent training and racing them. That's not a footnote. That's the default outcome. The dream is Fuseishi Pegasus. The reality, for most owners, is a horse that finishes mid-pack for a few seasons and quietly retires into obscurity. Then, occasionally, there's a horse like Zenyatta. She debuted in 2007 as a lightly regarded mare, and simply didn't lose. Race after race, she came from dead last, weaving through the field in the final stretch to win by a length, sometimes less, as crowds rose to their feet before she'd even crossed the line. She won 19 straight races before finally losing her 20th by a nose, in a finish so close that highlight reels still replay it today. By the time she retired, she wasn't just a successful racehorse. She was a brand, with her own following, her own merchandise, and breeding value that reportedly ran into the millions. Zenyatta and Fusashi Pegasus proved the same point from opposite directions. One horse justified a $70 million bet by never even needing to. The other justified it by becoming a phenomenon nobody could ignore. Either path leads to the same place, and it's never the racetrack itself. Knowing all of that, the mistakes in this business become easy to predict. New owners often put everything into a single horse, emotionally and financially, because they've fallen for the animal rather than the odds. When that horse gets hurt or simply isn't fast enough, there's nothing left to fall back on. Experienced owners rarely make that mistake. They spread their money across 10, 20, sometimes 50 horses at once, fully expecting most of them to lose money, because they only need one Fusashi Pegasus to make the entire portfolio worth it. So does owning a racehorse actually make financial sense? For most people who try it, no. The honest, unglamorous answer is that this is a business built on a small number of enormous winners covering the losses of everyone else. What makes it different from ordinary venture capital is that the payoff isn't buried in a spreadsheet. It's run in front of 100,000 people, live, with everything on the line in under 2 minutes. That's the real reason the world's wealthiest people keep buying yearlings they've never seen race. They're not chasing prize money. They're chasing the $70 million phone call that comes after.